This video will be a continuation in our series on the brain, and this video will cover the blood-brain barrier. Blood contains wastes, antibodies, macrophages, toxins, neurotransmitters, and hormones that can affect the function of our neurons. And so we need to make sure that we can control the composition of our CSF and prevent these substances from triggering responses in neurons that were not commanded by the brain or incoming input. So we have this blood-brain barrier that is going to prevent the unwanted passage of material from our capillaries into our CSF. In a normal capillary, we have these pores through which material can pass if it's small, or material can pass straight through the endothelial cell, which are these cells that make up our capillary wall. And substances can also be pumped in or out by specific carrier-mediated transport. Now, this allows a lot of material to move in or out of the capillary based on concentration gradients. But in our brain, we do not want that to happen. So the only time material is going to be able to pass from our blood vessel into the CSF is if that material is lipid soluble, meaning that it can just pass through our plasma membranes, or if we intentionally want that substance in our CSF, we use carrier-mediated transport. We can also see that we have tight junctions between our endothelial cells to prevent material from leaking in between our endothelial cells. And then we also have glial cells in our brain. That's going to be our astrocytes that create these perivascular feet to surround our blood vessel walls and prevent any unwanted movement of substances into or out of our blood. So generally, we say our blood-brain barrier is created by our astrocytes. Now, some material can get through. These capillaries are still permeable to water and glucose. So glucose is going to be our fuel for all of our neurons. Dissolved gases can move in and out of the capillaries with no problem. And lipid-soluble substances such as alcohol, caffeine, nicotine, and anesthetics can also move directly through all of those cell membranes to make it into the CSF. But generally, we can say that our blood-brain barrier is a tight barrier created by tight junctions between our endothelial cells and these perivascular feet of our astrocytes. You can see in this picture over here that our astrocytes are completely surrounding that capillary. Our blood-brain barrier created by our astrocytes is not the only blood barrier that we see in our central nervous system. We already discussed our blood-CSF barrier. Our blood-CSF barrier is created by ependymal cells, which are going to regulate the movement of substances into and out of our CSF at our choroid plexi. Remember, our ependymal cells are going to create CSF by monitoring and managing the transport of materials into or out of the blood. There are a few areas in our brain that lack a blood barrier system. The first of these is going to be our hypothalamus, which is located right here in our brain. Our hypothalamus is going to be the link between our central nervous system and our autonomic function, as well as integrating the functions of the nervous system with the endocrine system. Next, we have the pituitary gland, which is this gland right here, sitting inferior to our brain and connected to our hypothalamus via the infundibulum. So commands are going to begin in the hypothalamus, and they are sent down to our pituitary gland, and then our pituitary gland is going to be part of our endocrine system. Lastly, we have our pineal gland, which is located at the back of our epithalamus. And if you think about these three structures, the thing that they all have in common is that they release hormones into the bloodstream, and all of them are actually nervous tissues. In order for these areas to act as nervous tissues releasing hormones as part of our endocrine system, they need access to the bloodstream to push those hormones into the bloodstream. Furthermore, the hypothalamus is going to monitor many different things for our brain, including fluctuations in blood glucose, pH, osmolarity, and CO2 levels. And then the hypothalamus responds to those levels by secreting some hormones to carry out some complicated functions in homeostasis. If you have any questions about the blood-brain barrier, please do not hesitate to contact your instructor.